Welcome to Keep It Moving with Marcia Jews, WEAA 88.9 FM, your source for cool jazz and the voice of the community. Woo, this weekend was overwhelming. I've not been able to think straight through all the images and issues that this nation is plagued with between social media and network television regarding the unnecessary deaths of two men, Philando Castile in Minnesota and Alton Sterling, who's out of Louisiana, in two separate parts of this country by their police officers. Both carried weapons with the license and laws that approve that behavior, both up close and at point-blank distance. What is troublesome is that these typical normal stops ended in murder, with video cameras that clearly show these egregious murders by the hands of the people who are being protected to serve. Well, or who are there to protect and serve. There is much ado about the term, which has been turned into an organization, a term that resonates with me and my people. Black Lives Matter to many white people. This is a racist organization that is now at war with the police, when clearly the rogue police have already demonstrated their racist behavior and do not give a doggone about whether every black person on this planet lives or dies, because they do not serve the best interests of black people. Because of them, every time they shoot one more black man or woman, our black lives do not matter to them. I've read every possible article, opinion, or comment from every media person I follow to the folks on my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram accounts. I've been obsessed. From the 10 things we should tell our black sons, daughters, grandsons, and grandchildren to nieces and nephews who will at some point cross the thresholds of our households to go outside. How can we effectively protect them or us? There isn't a list of things that black people should do that will protect us. It is impossible for a person who is not black to understand what I'm talking about. I've watched racism, not only from the comfort of my living room, but up front and personal. This must stop. Our nation has finally landed in the world of Oz, where the yellow brick road no longer exists. It is polluted from the air to the sea and to the spirit of those who remain stuck on a belief that black people are the enemy and must all die. Clearly, that is the case, from the influx of drugs to our communities to poor educational systems that reflect the 1700s and the days of slavery to the modern-day slave hotels that house thousands of black and brown people that are owned and managed by for-profit corporations that are contracted by governors in states across this nation. They maintain their seats on the stock exchange. We have come too far to turn around. Where do you stand? And what would you do if it were you? Tonight's guest is... Welcome back to Keep It Moving with Marcia Jews. Dr. Robert Ladoux, here, President, CEO, and Director of Passport Systems Incorporated. It was founded to develop and commercialize nuclear resonance fluorescent technology, also known as NRF, as well as other technologies to address the threats facing the world in the aftermath of the terrorist attacks on 9/11. His team started at MIT, technologists and entrepreneurs. This company has developed two families of products based on their state-of-the-art technologies, the Smart Scan 3D inspection system and the Smart Shield networked radiation detection system. I decided to actually take this show because it was so amazing that we're dealing at this level across the world in airports and everywhere else. And why don't we let Dr. Ladoux tell us what this technology is about and what we as citizens should be thinking about. Hi, Doctor.
Hey, thank you, Ms. Jews. It's a pleasure to be on.
It's wonderful to have you on.
Oh, thank you.
You know what? When your folks sent it to me, I was like, why would he send me this technology? This is some deep stuff. But, you know, it really is. But it's serious. It's really serious.
It's extremely serious, and I think that with the events which you described in your promo, particularly the rise of terrorists in Europe,
yes,
the United States, and so on, so far, as horrible as that's been, it's been really done by firearms and explosive devices.
What did you call them? What did you call them? Firearms.
Firearms. So people, have used guns to terrorize and bombs, as recently in Turkey. Now imagine if instead of just an explosive device, you now put inside that explosive device radioactive material. Now, when that bomb goes off, it's as terrible as it is, the blast as we see it, the tremendous carnage. But if you put a radioactive material in it, you make it a dirty bomb, then what happens is that radiation gets dispersed. So think of how terrible the bomb already is. Now realize that all the people in that vicinity, even the ones not hurt by the blast, may get exposed to radiation. They can inhale it, ingest it, and it could have, down the road, very harmful effects.
So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
If I may. When you sit down and you talk about radiation, aren't there laws that the United Nations has set up where we're supposed to be dealing and containing nuclear development and processes?
Yes. So countries differ in how well they implement that.
Okay.
So that is done internationally by the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Okay.
And their job is, just as you said, to have rules which say if you have radioactive sources, say, for industrial purposes, they're used for a lot of industrial processes, those must be completely safeguarded, documented under lock and key when they're not used, and so on. But as we know, someone can steal them.
Okay.
Now, depending on what country you're in the U.S., where we live, that's very strongly regulated. Mm-hmm. So your access to them is controlled, and there's all sorts of safeguards. You're checked on when you have them, and so on. But the majority of radioactive material, particularly radioactive material that can be made into a nuclear weapon, a large fraction of that lies, for example, in the former Soviet Union.
Okay.
Or in failed states, like in Iraq, when they captured Mosul, they may have captured a lot of radioactive material.
As part of that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So in universities, in hospitals, in people making pipes maybe for the oil industry, there are these materials. So if you get a hold of them, then the question is, how can they be used against for terrorist purposes?
Right.
So you need to transport them to a place you want to use them. And where passports technology comes in is that you can have all the regulations you want, but once these materials are in the hands of the wrong person, how do you protect the citizens? How do you make sure that that bomb in Belgium, or God forbid the one in the carnage in Orlando,
right.
How do you make sure that those can't be turned, someone can bring to that a dirty bomb?
So hold on right there. When you talk about radiation, my brain, I'm not a scientist, so when you start talking about radiation and it's captured from the ground somewhere or some place in the Middle East or some Asian country, how does it come? What does it look like? Is it a rock? Is it what is it?
That's a great question. But to put it in perspective, all the radioactive materials, they're very different. Some are salts, like cesium. Some of them are metals, like the ones you make a nuclear bomb out of. Those basically are metals. But you need tiny amounts. For example, to do real damage to somebody might take 1 gram. So the equivalent of a penny's worth is enormously destructive. Mm-hmm. So these things, in terms of transport or hiding, are tiny. They can be tiny. And so the job is to detect their radiation with signature before it can be used for a nefarious purpose. Mm-hmm. So the amounts can be tiny. So there's not a question about, can it fit in a backpack? Yes, a lot of it can fit in a backpack. The question is, if someone's carrying in a backpack, say in a dirty bomb, can you stop it before it goes off? And that, because the consequences of it going off are so great, even a dirty bomb, and imagine a nuclear weapon's far greater, that all of our technology has been used to see if we can stop it before it happens, the right place.
All right, Dr. Robert Ladoux, this is very important, and you all need to think about all of our legislators in all of the states that you hail from. Thank you very much, Doctor. We'll keep keeping in touch, let you know what we hear about happening here in Maryland.
I will.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
You're listening to Keep It Moving with Marcia Jews, WEAA 88.9 FM, your source for cool jazz and the voice of the community.